Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MLOps Live webinar series, where the place where we talk about bringing data science to production and seeing real business value from your AI and AI initiatives. We are really happy to see you all here. We have a fantastic session coming up. My name is Edie, and I'm the head of community and open source marketing at Iguazio, acquired by McKinsey. And today we're going to be talking about building scalable customer-facing GenAI applications effectively and responsibly. We are looking forward to having Boris Bialik, Global Field CTO from MongoDB. Boris has over 30 years of experience in data and software and is spearheading the GenAI industry activities within MongoDB, closely collaborating with many leading and emerging AI companies. In addition to speaking about the evolution of AI and the AI factory, Boris will show us the benefits of the powerful synergy between MongoDB and Iguazio. We'll take a short pause for a poll. And then Asaf Somek, the co-founder and CEO of Iguazio, acquired by McKinsey. He has been a leading figure in tech, data, and AI landscape for nearly 30 years. He'll be diving into the customer-facing GenAI applications. He'll talk about the potential, the challenges, the solutions, along with some real-life examples. Afterwards, Zev Rispler, the ML engineer and super demo expert at Iguazio, will show us a fantastic demo showing a hyper-personalized banking agent demo that he built along with the under the hood logic. And we'll pause for another poll, and then I will give the mic back to Boris, Asaf, and Zeb for a live discussion. But before we jump into the Q&A today, we have a very special giveaway to announce. Make sure to stay until the end so you don't miss it. Now, before we begin, a few housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded and sent to you after the webinar. There is no need to worry if you miss something. We've got a lot to cover. As always, we'll be taking your questions live. I know it's always a really interesting part of the webinar, so in order to make sure that we don't miss your questions, please do use the Q&A tab on the bottom of your screen throughout the session, and we'll do our very best to get to all of them. Don't you send them in the chat. Please use the Q&A tab on the bottom of your screen. We'll also be running 2 polls, so please do fill them in. They help us make these sessions valuable, and we will share the results with you all at the end of the live session. We'd like to invite you to join our MLOps Live community, where we'll be continuing the conversation afterwards. We'll share the link right now in the chat. And we're going to put everyone on mute, and we'll be recording the session, and we'll send it to you right after. So without further ado, I'm really excited to invite Boris to get this party started.
Thank you, Edith. And I would like to start a little bit backward, which maybe sounds funny when you say, wait, AI is coming, and you talk backward, but when we take a look, there's this lovely term, crucible moment, which comes from Sequoia, actually. They call it an inflection point where a choice you make today has an outsized bearing on your trajectories for years and even decades. And this sounds pretty big, but I think I have a short example here for you guys, which I want to bring up. When you take a look about the internet, next slide, please. This is the year 2000. And in the year 2000, we had companies like Microsoft, and everybody believed this was big. But then suddenly, 2000, internet was just a passing fad that millions gave up. But what does this have to do with our work today? When we take a look, we invest today into the bottom. In 2000, what did people invest into? Cisco. Cisco was big, network, dial-up, all of that stuff. And today, people buy a lot of GPUs, LLMs, billions of dollars. Anybody who has stock in NVIDIA, congratulations. So, but when we take a look, that's where the dollars are invested. But was this really, now going back to the other example, where the value was generated? And the value is generated actually on the applications. But when we take a look to this picture, and now back to our subject, building scalable customer-facing GenAI applications. That is a much bigger path forward. And I have another small examples here. Anybody remembers that device? This is the original iPhone. And remember the cool apps we had? No, there were no cool apps. But when we take a look today, over time, apps became sophisticated in what we have today. Wait, this is 24 years after the fad, which goes away in 2000. So when we think now about building scalable customer-facing solutions, we have to think back to the crucial moment. It has some decisions today to make right, and it's not the decision which LLM you choose. But you need to think about how you plan and build applications to move from the old internet, Cisco dial-up, over the first iPhone to these new applications. When we take a look, next slide, please. The first wave of AI applications will be the same wave for us as the first apps on the iPhone. What was the coolest app? The new weather app. Remember that one? That was really, really cool. And then obviously the email app, which was big. But what we are focusing on right now are easy wins. But we should not forget the viewpoint of the long-term trajectory and the overlaying impact, how value is generated for our employers, ourselves, and where as well the fun from the development comes in. When we take a look to what the various things are today, and it's really about, first, we need to support a broad number of use cases. It's not good enough today to say, oh, I have use cases and I need that. But we need an open, flexible environment with any data type. And this is an interesting discussion I had with a client. And this is back to customer-facing Gen AI applications. I can only repeat that. It's funny when people talk about data saying, no, I can store any data in my database. And then you say, how good is this for you when we talk about videos, when we talk about pictures, we talk about voice chats for real-time call center. And yeah, we do this in a kind of different fashion. And then you hear about all the ways how people blob in their databases, building very artificial indices. You probably hear now the data person comes through. So what you really need to think about is, what does any data type really mean today? Any data type is not like back to the year 2000, relational tables. Oh, I have birth dates and street address. Congratulations. No, it's about very complex information, what we're storing inside the document models, what we need to bring in there. And it's about complex structures describing interactions of individuals. You want to make sure you don't lose the mortgage application because you couldn't store the geospatial data. It's a very mean example, but it's a good one. And on the other side, we need to be very open and flexible today when we look at AI-powered needs, because we really don't know. Did we know in the year 2000 what the Apple iPhone will look like and how the Zoom app of 2024 looks like? Absolutely not. But we need to be independent. We cannot say, I'm going with the following LLM. My cloud provider is, and I choose one framework, and that is the plan for the next 10 years. When people go into these robo mode, you normally know they really haven't thought this one through. And experimenting, you have to start somewhere. That's a given. But you really need to think about LLMs for change, clouds, frameworks. There's so much stuff. Back to the example. Did we know in the year 2000 about the Apple iPhone? And last and not least, we need a unified data platform where we trust, because one thing which is critical, and this is maybe a little bit self-serving when you start talking about MongoDB and a MongoDB person, but you need a unified data platform which does multiple things at the same time in real time. Because one thing you will never get back, and this is back to the days when you run at the weekend or the month's end some export ETLs into your data warehouse, and the answer was, yellow yogurts sell better than red yogurts. Congratulations. So when we look into a unified data platform, this means I need to be able to not only store any type of data, but I need to be able to connect any kind of application, framework, cloud, LLM into my system, and those probably change. But I need to have the trust that my data platform does not need to change every week, because then I have a big problem. And that was honestly for the most of the time of the internet, a relational structure that was good enough. But by now we need the document model. Otherwise we are toast, because we're living in a time of JSON-driven applications and platform integration. When we take a look today in that picture, it's really important to realize we have these different types, and the most usual ones are literally exactly those ones right now. Text, books, PDFs, audio, video. These are unstructured data, and we utilize a lot of models. We use different embeddings. We use a lot of augmented generation on that one. And then on the other side, coming up very soon, semantic search. You saw probably the announcements of the search from the ChatGPT guys. But when you take a look, you really don't want to deal with every single component manually. I always tell people, when you buy a car, you don't start by minting the iron and pouring your own block. You buy a car, but you want to have the car outfitted and souped up to your needs and specific requirements. And this is where the AI factory approach comes on. And this is where we're back to the subject of building scalable customer-facing Gen AI applications comes in. I need to be able effectively and responsibly to build this application on this level. It's not the fact that I can build a rack-based system, manual scrap it together. Actually, I can do this in 15 minutes. The question is this compliant with my customer PII or PHI, so private health information? All of those things, is this all compliant there? And that's where the AI factory approach, where later Asaf will talk more about, is all about. Next slide, please. When we take a look from this developer data platform, and that's this unified platform thought, most people are used to talk, oh yeah, MongoDB, OLTP apps, no, but we're doing time series, we're doing integrated full text search, we're doing real-time analytics, we're doing stream processing and vector search, all inside the data structure with the same APIs, with the same flow, very flexible, and you connect to any cloud platform anytime. You can have multiple cloud platforms all on premises at the same time. So there's a lot of things why we believe we have the right solution, the unified platform and the developer data platform for you ready. Now, from the solution integration side, I would like to announce today that Iguazio joins MongoDB's AI application program, which is something which we just started on, which is really, really important. Because we figured out jointly, and Iguazio was part of the discussions from the beginning, next slide please, that most clients by now asking for what's happening in the industry, what are doing other people, what are people doing around this concept. And one base for this one, obviously, is our MongoDB Atlas Cloud Platform. But the other part is as important, the reference architectures which we developed, our AI tech partners, such as Iguazio, acquired by McKinsey, and the services around that one to plug all the things together in a form that we can build things. We are building solutions by now at clients with a large number of partners here across the various cloud platforms, as you can see. And the interesting part, what I learned is, we actually can build production environments out. And this is a positive thing, what I really like by now. We are moving over the last 8 months from this experimental mode, chatbots, reading single PDF files, answering questions, to quite complex solutions, ranging from advisory for credit cards, mortgage approvals, insurances, real-time insurance management, all different kinds of fraud systems, obviously, that comes with the business these days, sadly. So we have all these partners brought together, and out of that one, we believe we can deliver you an integrated approach. Next slide. And I hand over back to Edith.
Thank you so much, Boris. That was fantastic. All right, we have got lots to discuss, but before we do that, I am going to launch the first poll. Where are you on your Gen AI journey? So please do take a minute to let us know. Are you just learning about Gen AI? Do you have a specific use case in mind? Have you beginning? Do you need to move your Gen AI app to production, beyond the POC stage? Are you looking to scale? Please take a minute and just let us know where you are on your Gen AI journey.
Thank you, Edith, and thank you, Boris. And Boris, we're super happy to join the MongoDB AI Partner Program, MAP. And we'll show later how we actually build joint solutions. So, yeah, we're talking about customer-facing Gen AI applications, and I'm sure we're all reading the news, and of course, we have visibility to what clients are doing, but there were a few that were running very quickly and indeed already showed some early results. You can see here examples from banking, construction companies, credit card companies that already can launch some services, some of them partial, not fully at the scale of the entire customer base, but people, in a quite quick way, in very narrow use cases, manage to actually show the results. It only shows the huge potential that Gen AI has for client-facing application. But we also heard about stories like Air Canada. It's okay, we're good on this slide. Air Canada, and there was another car dealership in the US that were very quick to launch a chatbot based on Gen AI that actually got them into trouble with some kind of inventing policies and pricing that did not exist. And I think that was kind of something that created a new way how people started looking at Gen AI. Yes, there is huge potential, but it comes with actually many risks. Some are, basically old risk on steroid, but some of them are completely new. Who would have thought that, a technology will create some IP risks because of the creation that comes with Gen AI. And there are other, of course, hallucination is something that we're helping clients today deal with, and there are many techniques for that. But when we think about de-risking, we should think about governance. And this is where we see companies that want to, on one side, to innovate with AI and spread the technology in the organization, but they're not governing that. And that is super risky. There are many elements to that, from cost, because as many of us know, LLMs can be very expensive. They're leveraging technologies such as GPUs. They're very compute hungry, and if not controlled, this could escalate your costs, especially when you're running in the cloud, and you can dynamically scale up, and suddenly your costs are horrendous. This is where we see a lack of education in the market when it comes on how to use GPUs. There are many techniques to actually improve the way GPUs are being utilized. And this is a very strong angle where we actually educate clients, work with them, show them what the Iguazio platform can actually do in that space. And this is another thing to think of when you control the infrastructure of running your LLM and in general your AI applications. And this is part of the factory approach that Boris mentioned before. People need to change. They actually look at risk and how they approve new models. And this is another thing that's beyond the technology. It's the processes and people. Risk divisions need to be kind of retrained and basically rethought in terms of structure, in terms of how they're integrated in the day-to-day of delivering applications to the business. And this is another whole topic that we can actually have a complete webinar just on that. This comes along also with the security risks and, as Boris said, the fast-changing landscape. You need to use an architecture as part of your AI factory that if today a particular LLM is the king, in a couple of months, it will be a different one. In some areas, you'll be using cloud APIs, and then you'll realize that you actually want to self-host it in your cloud environment, build a flexible architecture that will allow you to do that. And this is something we work closely with our clients. Next one. Talking on process and working with clients, one thing that we see that is working well is taking kind of a staged approach when it comes to customer-facing applications, which eventually is continuously improving the accuracy of your knowledge base. When we say knowledge base, a big element of that is, fine-tuning LLMs with your internal policies, with your products, but also with your customer data. And this is where you want to do it in the most secure way, the most responsible way. And this stage approach allows you to do that. So if we take the domain of contact center and call centers, where we usually recommend starting with the call center, the calls analysis, and optimizing the behavior and the professionalism of the agents within the call center. By analyzing calls, you can actually deflect calls, you can actually prevent calls if you actually change some of the documentation on your website and realize that you're actually eliminating calls. And this can be done now automatically using GenAI. You can actually scan all of your calls rather than just picking samples of that. And at the same time, by providing the direct feedback while it's happening to your supervisor in the call center, you can actually improve and reduce the time it takes to train your agents. So this is application one. We can see the risk is low, but already there is a significant business impact. As we move through the process, we got the real-time agents that we'll talk about in a second. And at the end, everybody, when you think customer facing, you think about the chatbots, but it's super important. On the way to chatbots, you can actually build the models, the entire infrastructure through a process that you will first have a co-pilot for your agents, basically building the same infrastructure, but you're limiting it to the agents where over time, they will help you perfect the model because they will actually detect hallucination that they happen. By detecting them, you can actually gradually build a mechanism that will completely prevent them or reduce them to a minimal level. And beyond that is perfecting answers and so on. So this is something that has been working for many clients to take that gradual approach. Next one. This is how it looks. I mean, this is taken from some projects, of course, anonymized, where we help clients create a supervisor station that in real time transcribes and provides the topics that are being discussed with the agents, how the agents are performing, and allowing the supervisor to actually react in real time, intervene when needed. And at the same time, by having this analysis, you can actually deflect and prevent calls by understanding the root cause that got your customers to call the call center. Next one. When you look at the pipeline, this is something that we work a lot with clients to understand that a GenAI application is not a simple box that just sends data into an LLM. It's a much more complex world as usual, and you have a pipeline of different steps. And within a single application, you may have several LLMs, and you may have some boxes that are simple heuristics, and some boxes that are good old machine learning or deep learning. So this is why, going back to the concept of an AI factory, when you build LLM applications, make sure that you're running on infrastructure that is already supporting traditional AI, and heuristics is still referred to as AI, or it's just simple logic, and it's not just everything has to go to an LLM. Sometimes an LLM will trigger an action that will actually just query a database. Some information sits in a database, and retrieving it from a database is not, it's not the dirty word. You can actually do that, and it will be even more accurate than just doing it through an LLM. Most people are getting overusing LLMs. The next step is that Copilot I mentioned before. Imagine your agent getting in real time transcription that is then summarized on the right side of the screen, where you actually get the summarization and also the recommendation, what to ask, how to answer, retrieving information automatically. As the customer is asking something, you can trigger an action that will probe a database, information specific for that client, information that is specific for your organization. So all of that actually allows you to be more accurate, to reduce the call handling time, to shorten the time it takes to train call center agents. And I think I covered it already here. I mean, there's all the business benefits. And then comes the last piece, which is, the all-in-all chatbot. Here is an architecture, but as we move through the slide, I think it's better to actually have Zeev show what he's built, which is that chatbot. And this is where we look at the factory. A factory is that process from the data management, building the data pipelines that feed into the models, the development stages, basically the deployment that is all synchronized through a standardized multi-dimensional CI/CD process, leveraging your existing CI/CD tools, but most people use them in a disconnected way between the software that you have in the application, the model that you have in the application. Sometimes they're not governed at all. And linked to that, the data sets that were used to train the particular version of a model. We help clients basically with our platform to actually synchronize that and have this multi-dimensional CI/CD as part of the governance. And the last piece of it that is so important is actually monitoring what's happening, the performance of the models, if there are data drift within the data set that you're using, and what models are you using? Is there a risk because you're using a particular version of a model that suddenly the world has realized that this model includes some malicious software in it? You want to actually know which applications are using that. So this comes with that last piece, which is called LiveOps. And this factory is continuously operating feedback loop from one to another. And this is the approach in order to be ready for the fast changing landscape that we have in the space, and also be able to actually govern and address the risks. And going back to the partnership with MongoDB, here is a pretty detailed architecture of how we layered the Iguazio AI factory on top of an end-to-end unified data environment that is all running on MongoDB. Any data need that you have here, from NoSQL through document, through time series and vector, is running on top of MongoDB. And that's, I think, will be a great way to hand it off to Zev after the next poll, right, Edith?
We're actually going to jump right into Zev's section, and then we're going to do a poll.
Okay.
Go ahead, Zev. Thanks so much, Asaf.
So thank you, Asaf and Edith. Yeah, like Asaf said, the last step is to do intelligent chatbot. So after looking at all the data provided to me by our friends at Mongo, we decided to do a smart credit card chatbot that will help you choose the best credit card for you, for your needs, based on your history, depending on your financial history, on your income, all sorts of financial data that we have that I assume most banks or credit card companies have at least that data. But in addition, we wanted to make it a bit more interesting. So we added hyper-personalization. We take more personal information that we have, not too personal, of course, but basic stuff that we have that's stored also in the database, and we use it to talk a bit more to the client's taste, let's say. So yeah, let's jump into the logic. This is the larger logic of the application. This is something that's very reusable. We built this for previous demos as part of our production first mindset. We like to do things that are very reusable, and all of our demos work with clients. This is a very general architecture. So you can see that we have here the prompt inside, and we have the session loading for each client, each chat. We have the query refinement to make sure that the context doesn't get too large, that the model doesn't get confused. Then we have some guardrails, which are just building blocks, the two on top, like the subject classification and the toxicity filter. We can add them, remove them, edit them however we want. We have the logic that will show a bit later. And then we have the history saving, of course. We try to keep all the chats to improve the models, improve the conversations, use caching, and when deployed to reduce costs. Yeah, and let's go to the application logic. So this is a bit of a more inside look of how the agent itself works. So first of all, it gets the prompt, the question, the query from the client. It decides what does the client want? Does he have some general question? Does he want a credit card for himself to be recommended, to ask about a specific credit card? Then it generates an initial response based on the information he has on the client, and returns it to fetches the required information from the MongoDB database, the personal information, then the professional information, the financial information, or the credit card information, or both, and response. And then the next time when the client asks, we already have the personal information, for example, in the context. We don't need to access again. This reduces some time for us. Yeah, now I think we can take a look at a demo. We have here already signed in as the clients. All the data you're going to see here is synthetically generated. Nothing is personal, of course, provided by our friends in Mongo. Yeah, and let's go inside, log in our first client. So she's going to be a more younger client. So what we want to do here as part of our hyper-personalization is to talk with her on a first name basis. Yeah, okay, gotta jump here. First name basis, you can see it's very friendly, very casual. She's going to ask for a credit card. Now, the agent is gonna respond in also a very casual, a very fun way, with providing the necessary information for an initial query for the client. You can see here, like he says, yeah, no fees, no joining fees. That's because we had an algorithm that looks for all the cards that are suited for the client and then chooses the one with the lowest fees. And also it's talking in a very cheerful and fun way. Now we're asking for more information about this card. The agent will now take a deeper look and tell us a bit more. Yeah, so as you can see now, we get here an emoji even that's really talking to the younger clients, and it's talking about reward points, cashback, dining, other perks that this card has, and anything that she would like, she can ask for more, and whatever she needs to decide if this is the card for her. Now let's take a look at the more older client. So you can see right at the start, very respectful. She will also need a new credit card. So here you won't see any emojis. You will see the answers are being much more respectful, much more polite, let's say. We'll give her much more information, like right at the start, just more flat response. Again, it doesn't offer a card with any fees because, again, the algorithm is the same here, just the way he talks to her is different. So we offers her the best card for her that has the lowest fees. Yeah, so now let's ask for more. Now we will see a more detailed answer with all the information that's possible. But again, the answer itself will be very polite, very respectful, won't be so casual as before. Yeah, and more of a classical way of selling. You can see that it tells her, for example, that it's the largest, one of the largest banks in India, and is going for a more classic way. But of course, it also tells her about all the perks and also all the bureaucracy that's needed to join the card and who who can join. And yeah, again with Miss Joseph, very professional. Doesn't color by her first name. Now let's take a look at the data. Yeah, in a second, we'll take a look at the data. This is the Mongo UI. You can see here, first of all, this is the personal data we have. So this is one of the clients, his age, social security, occupation, annual income, and everything we need to decide on a card for him. And also the details we use to personalize it. And now let's take a look at the cards. So again, we have here just general text information, the name of the card, of course, the annual fees you need to pay, and other limitations you have on it. These are all the details that we needed in our algorithm in order to match the card for the client. And yeah, this is all the information we used. The rest is being brought using prompts and other tools we used to match the best card for client.
Thank you so much, Zev. That was fantastic. We've got a lot still left in this fantastic session. So before we continue, I would just want to take another quick pause and pull up the second poll for the webinar. So if you are able to just take 1 minute and let us know what are your greatest challenges when implementing Gen AI. Working on premises, GPU utilization, more focused on the privacy, compliance, or the costs. I have a hunch that there are multiple challenges that you're encountering. So this is a multiple choice question. Please do take the time to select all that are relevant for you. Now we're doing something a little bit more unconventional, something we haven't done before, but we want to open this up for a discussion. We are going to then announce our giveaway, and then we will dive into the Q&A. So I'm going to hand it over to Zev and Boris and Asaf. There was so much that we discussed, that you guys discussed in your talks, and I'm sure that that's just the beginning of what we can discuss about Gen AI. So I'm going to open it up to you for this discussion.
Thanks, Edith.
Well, we have a lot of things, but I think, Asaf, the first one where everybody comes after us is, how do I start, right? How do I move from experimentation to going live?
Yes. So, people, there are a few approaches. One option is when people are really eager to go and do something live with like a subset, this is a common practice for applications where you open it up only to a subset. So people, we've seen it even with banks that open it up. I mean, they're trying to avoid any sensitive data, so it's only on public information. So people can try. I mean, I recommend doing that too, where you can actually build one app if you just want to understand how it helps. Limited scale, limited risk. I mean, you can still use the cloud APIs because it's all public information. You just do some RAG and fine tuning with that public information, all good. But then the real application is when you actually need to start building that factory. And when we say factory, sometimes it may sound scary because you think of a very large construction or something like that. But you can actually take that approach, and this is where I recommend. We have a lot published on our website when it comes to this approach. Also, our joint blog. I think we can actually share it in the chat here, where we talk about this approach. And you can actually start small, but with the right foundation that once it's not having the application ready and then you start scaling it. Think about, as I've said before, production first mindset. When you build the application, think of what will it take to actually parallelize it? What will it take to break it down to this granularity that will not overuse the GPUs when you don't need to do that? This is kind of a mindset of already doing that in your early development stages, and will save you a lot of time when you go into production, and sometimes people need to completely rewrite their applications.
Yeah, and I think one area which we really need to mention is I was a little bit waxing on data and platform and integration, why this is so important for everybody. But the governance around this data and the interfaces to the how do you do the vectorization in a smart factor upfront? How do the embedding so that no internal knowledge is leaking out into the internet? How do you build this one? I mean, the factory is really your framework to ensure that you have a standardized process to avoid that, right? Because I saw this in the questions as well. A lot of people are concerned about governance, and that's where the factory helps as well.
Yeah, completely. I mean, to the extreme, I saw some clients that were saying, "Yeah, we just provide guidelines on how to build the applications. It's easy. People just do whatever they want, and this is like super scary. I mean, this is extreme, but it implies. I mean, you want to know which models are being used right now when you're actually interacting with clients, because it could be something malicious. You want to know what costs are you having? How do you control that? I mean, this is why when we say AI factory, just to be clear on that, there are multiple steps. You got the factory version for the developers, and then just like in standard software, you have a testing environment, a staging environment that is much more controlled. This is where you test for scale. We've seen some incidents, right, recently in the IT world where stuff is not being tested, and we saw the consequences. With AI, it could be a disaster, much bigger disaster. This was a disaster, right? And so you want to test for scale, you want to test for glitches, you want to see the level of hallucination. It will never be zero, but you want to control it. And then, only then, you move to production. And this is kind of a smooth process, all controlled and governed through your CI/CD processes involving risk people. It's not just technology, it's a combination of technology, people, and processes.
Yeah, and one thing what you mentioned, sorry if I'm a little bit jumping here, but Zev, you use the model. How many times do you switch your LLMs? Because I know this is the standard now question, man, what is the right LLM? And then the people get this deep view into my eyes and try to look like Boris, show me the ball, and which is the fame coming out. So Zev, how many different LLMs are you working with? Just for curiosity.
Yeah, so in this world, like a new LLM comes out every week, so you can't really keep up. It's really getting crazy.
Yeah.
And some of them, are amazing, but they're also very, very expensive. So even in like these demos, sometimes I use 3 or 4 LLMs in the same demo, We had a demo that we fine-tuned a model, smaller model, just to answer a specific question. We used another one to do some identification problem. And if one of the smaller one fails, then we escalate to the larger one, you see? And we can switch them in and out very easily. The LLM is not really the purpose here. It's just one of the tools we use in the bigger tools.
I love the one statement what the large retailer in Germany, CTO, said. I can tell you what LLM we use today, but I'm pretty sure it's not the same in 6 months.
Yeah.
I love that line. It was so ice cold delivered. It was scary.
So let me give you the flip side of it. I met with a customer, I won't name names and even industry, that their process of validating, checking, and kind of clearing from risk perspective takes 9 months. I told them, look, in 9 months, this model will be obsolete. I mean, you're wasting your time. You have to change the way you're operating. It's not the old days. This is moving fast, and we are seeing many companies, including banks, that are changing the whole process, moving some more responsibility to product owners based on some guidelines regarding risk, very specific. You can actually also split the types of models. And for each model, means if it's a model that is a creator, obviously you'll be concerned with IP. If it's a summarizer, there is no IP risk. So this is where you can actually minimize the headaches in terms of the processes to qualify models.
Cool. Do we want to go over to Q&A? Edith?
I think we wanted to talk about on-prem. I mean, this comes up a lot. Actually, I met a CIO today, and I was sharing with him, and he actually felt the same. You know, again, Iguazio has been out there for almost 10 years. We'll be celebrating in December. And we have seen a process, you know, over the years where, you know, everything was obviously moving more and more to the cloud. And on-prem was considered, oh, that's old stuff, legacy. We're not touching that. I mean, we're letting the systems die and we're moving everything to the cloud. Upon the arrival of ChatGPT and the hype around Gen AI, and when people started doing more, people are actually much more concerned to actually do Gen AI and run Gen AI in the cloud. We're seeing governments that are forcing Gen AI initiatives to be actually, it's part of the NVIDIA campaign of sovereign AI, that stuff will be happening within the country, and companies want to do it within their data center, triggering a huge amount of NVIDIA cells and GPUs that are going into data centers. So actually, if 2 years ago we were spending 20% of our time on-prem installations, right now it's something like 60%. And I'm telling people in that the audience, I mean, if you need to run on-prem, it's good, it's okay. I mean, people think that if they're restricted to on-prem because of regulatory requirements or even self-governed requirements, they can't do Gen AI. But believe me, you can actually do, and we have amazing stories of how people have done that.
Yeah, and it's really about run anywhere, right? Asaf, we have so many clients who were all in cloud, then back prem, then said we need both, and they look at us, and this is really, really fun.
And
Edith.
it's about where you're actually, I mean, based on the workload, what makes sense for a sporadic workload with a lot of compute requirement that are changing, that may be cloud. And if it's fixed, on-prem may be cheaper.
I feel like this is a never-ending conversation, and we have some incredible questions that came in through the Q&A. Before we jump into the Q&A, Asaf, do you want to announce the giveaway?
Sure. So be quick on your email application right now. We're basically offering 5 free workshops combining MongoDB and Iguazio experts, virtual workshops, where we will be listening to you, your Gen AI needs, your Gen AI challenges, where you are in the journey, and helping you progress with some good tips and maybe beyond that. So all you need to do is follow the instructions here, provide the details, and send it to Edith, and she will basically announce the winners directly to them. And that's, I mean, again, you should rush and do that now.
Yes, please submit the context. Like Asaf said, it will really help us understand your needs and what you're trying to achieve. And I will also be posting the winners and additional continuing the conversation. We have, I think, over 20 questions in the Q&A that we're not going to get to all right now. And so make sure to join our MLOps Live community. We'll share the link in the chat. And we will continue the conversation there as well. So we have a lot of questions. Let's open up the Q&A and see where we can start. Feel free to browse as well, Asaf and Zev and Boris. Wow, there are so many questions.
So maybe I can address the bubble thing. Yes, I mean, there is some sort of a bubble. Of course, things are a bit overhyped, but there is real value here. I mean, it is a leap in technology. We're seeing it. I mean, let's stay on the topic of chatbots. Chatbots in non-English speaking countries are typically, I mean, pre-Gen AI are horrible. I mean, I've met with many clients that just didn't really look at it. And myself, when I use a chatbot which is not English, all I do is say, agent, human, give me the human. I don't even read what. And
Yeah.
there is a change here. I mean, just the revolution around chatbots brings a lot of value. When it comes to cost, user experience, competitiveness, and people understand that. This is kind of the most intuitive set of applications that there is out there because everybody uses ChatGPT, including board members, and they tell their CEOs, why aren't we improving our call center? Because ChatGPT speaks really well in my language too. So I think that we have seen, actually, I've seen some news, and again, we can share it after the webinar, around the earnings recently of the top banks in the US that are showing a rise in their AI spend, but they're super confident that the business that it will bring will basically cover that and much more.
So I would like to pick up some here, which are really cool. By the way, there were questions about MongoDB. I shared the link back to the whole group here to our Atlas Vector Search. And then there were questions about what are good vertical use cases to start from and which are addressed out of the box. And I shared 120 pages because you guys love long readings on the weekends, ebook. So feel free to download that one. It has very detailed use cases. But the question, how long does it take, I would pick up. So we have seen cases which could be implemented literally in weeks, and we have seen cases which took several months. It really depends. But an easy chatbot internally, house internal use for a bank, for example, looking up relationship manager, looking up basically customer information, this can be done within 4 weeks. Just to give you an idea, it's always easier in-house than to go directly to the end client outside, which is what Asaf talked about. The low-hanging fruits are probably to start with in-house versus directly client-facing. And the other question is here, right to be forgotten, embeddable. This is all handled through MongoDB security context. We have multiple ways for this one, and the webinar here is maybe probably not the right way, but we have, besides TTL indexes, which automatically deletes data based on date and time, as well as the user-side encryption and our various new features, what we introduced on the client-side encryption modes. So there's a lot of things what we're doing to where you pull just the key and the data becoming basically just garbled out. So there's a lot of stuff which is available. And the question is always in the detail, right? When I see, for example, prompt injection handled, how are the PII? So what I really suggest, if you have specific use cases, drop an email with some details more to edit, and we can follow up in specific cases. Asaf, as well as my team, we have industry experts for various industries, FSI, healthcare, and so on. We're more than happy to work with all people who are interested.
Thank you so much, Boris. I see there's a couple questions about governance and guardrails related to the demo, Zeb. I'm not sure if you want to, I know Asaf talked about it, but do you want to give a few words on that specifically? For the demo?
I see also a lot of questions here, like how is prompt injection handled? So, we can't handle everything in one demo. We have a specific use case we want to show here. So of course we can't add defenses in just a simple demo for all sorts of attacks. So here we don't really take that into account. Of course,
you can talk about it in how we actually work with production clients.
Yeah, sure. So of course that we run all sorts of filters before and also after we use the chatbot. Before and each answer has been given, it goes for our monitoring app, which has all sorts of defense systems. We use LLM as judges to grade the answer, to see how much is it relevant to the RAG, the data that it's being given, everything like that, how relevant it is to the question asked. So a lot of stuff like that, it can't be 100% sure, but you can really minimize the risk and just in the worst case, light some warning lamp to see that something's wrong here. Another question I see is the boundary between feature engineering and the demo. So like the personal details are being injected into the prompt while the user is being logged in. So that would be just like I said, the age and the more personal details needed to the personalization. The rest of the details, we take them in through all sorts of tools, different ways of using RAG, so for example, the credit card and stuff like that, we do simple vector search. If you ask for a credit card by name, we search for that. And if you ask for a general recommendation, then we look at your
Maybe I'll take the PII one
okay.
because that's a tricky one because there are two sides to it. Yes, everybody's sensitive to PII, GDPR, and things like that. And of course, when you're using the cloud Gen AI services APIs, you don't want to push in their personal information of your customers. But then comes the option, because anyway, you have that information. You're cleared to do it in the cloud. So yes, you can actually run the entire application, including the model that you completely maintain. Once you actually brought a version of a model, whether it's commercial or open source, I saw another question about that. Bring it to your environment, whether it's in the cloud, in your own account, if you're cleared to have PII information within your cloud account. But if not, and you're doing it on-prem, you can actually host that model and fine-tune it on-prem. So then it allows you to actually, we see many customers or our clients asking how to actually train in a secure way, in a responsible way, fine-tune a model with real client information, because we want to actually extract much more, cross-correlate from the information we have about the client. I mean, all enterprises and many enterprises are recording all the calls that their agents are having with their customers. So that information is there. You can actually do. You're sitting on a mine gold, and you can actually transcribe, cross-correlate, but do it in a safe way. So this is when it comes to using PII, if you want to use it. If you want to eliminate that, there are easy ways, and it was actually shown in the architecture where you actually take that, replace it with basically different information, and then you can actually use it in areas where your regulator doesn't allow you to use PII. This was a question from Kaushik Datta.
So just if you can, Asaf, maybe I see a question here about, based on our poll, what are the largest problems that your clients are facing? We've talked about a lot of different challenges and how to overcome them. But if you could pick one challenge that you see across all clients for implementing Gen AI, what would you say?
So it really depends on the stage of where clients are, but the clients that are starting to scale, and I'm working with many clients that have gone through the stages, approved internally that they know which apps they're already, they did the pilots, they're ready to actually take it to the scale. Then comes, it's actually a combination. It all boils down to cost. If you're not using your GPUs right or your cloud APIs right, your cost for these applications can mount in a way that is exponential. So there is a lack of education in the market around how to use GPUs. And this is an area where we actually bumped into many customers, clients that they're eager to learn more on how to actually extract much more from their GPUs. And I'm talking orders of magnitude, 60x, 100x, even more. And that applies directly to cost. I mean, a GPU hour in the cloud or buying a GPU is expensive. Sometimes buying a GPU is something that the lead time will be a year. So you should do with the GPUs that you have already much more. So that's an area where I see a lot of challenges.
Thank you, Asaf. Before we end this fantastic session, I just want to invite you to log on to our website where we have a lot of resources. Boris shared some resources as well. Check out our website. There's a lot of previous sessions. This is our 31st MLOps live webinar. So check out some of our previous sessions and browse through those and take a look at your convenience. There's blogs, best practices, case studies, and let us know what you think. And I really just want to take a moment and thank Boris, Asaf, and Zev so much for this fantastic session. And thank you all for your incredible questions and your engagements in the chat. We really, really appreciate all of you joining us today. As Boris and we've said multiple times, this was a lot of things to discuss in a short amount of time. So join our MLOps Live community. We'll share the link again. Let's continue the conversation. We'll answer some of those questions again after the webinar. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session. So thank you all so much for joining. And I hope you guys enjoyed.